Wow. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for this really fascinating presentation. I am looking forward to having this conversation. We're pleased to be joined on stage um, by Hugo van der Westesen, and I'm never sure if I pronounce your name right, Hugo, so my apologies. My name is complicated as well. Marcus Hoffmeyer and Herbert and Roomby. It's such a pleasure and have you here with us to answer some questions. So there's been a number of questions that have been asked during the presentation. I'll start maybe with a kind of a big overview question and it's harder than it seems, but how many rhinos are there left in the wild? Marcus, do you want to give us just another quick overview of that?
So the most numerous of the 5 species is the southern white rhino. There's probably between 13 and maybe 15,000 left in the world. Black rhinos are between 5,500 and 6,000. Greater one-horned rhinos that also occur in Nepal. I apologize for not mentioning them in the speech. About 3.8 thousand. Javan rhinos is unfortunately only 74, and Sumatran rhinos, from what we know, probably less than 50 wild individuals, but not in one population. So we have a range and a gradient of numbers, but as you can see, the majority of them are precariously low numbers still.
Great. And sticking on that question, there's a question that came up about why is there an isolated population of rhinos in Chad so much further north than others?
So that population was recently reintroduced. So West Africa lost all of its rhinos already in the middle of the last century. There's unfortunately only 2 rhinos at the moment there, but there's plans to put more rhinos there. So it is a reintroduction that took place together with the government of Chad and African parks in Zakuma National Park.
Great, thank you. And next question, I think might be good for Herbert and Roomby, and Hugo might have some answers as well. But along with illegal trade, is there also conflict with local communities and rhinos, say with some of the agricultural practices? And if so, how's that handled to educate, engage, and change the behavior of community members? And I think it's a really interesting question because of the opportunity that we have to change the narrative for the future of rhino conservation. Herbert and Roomby, do you have thoughts to share on that question?
Yes, as GCT, we have our community engagement program. We know that communities are involved in wildlife crime and trade, illegal wildlife crime and trade. So we are engaging them and trying to bring them on board to understand the dangers and the conservation of rhinos. Thank you.
Thank you. Hugo or Marcus, I know that's a conversation I've had with Marcus, but do either one of you want to provide a little bit more context to those opportunities of changing that narrative?
I can quickly come in here, and then maybe Hugo can follow up. Is that I think that historically rhinos, because of the endangered status, have very much been protected behind fences with rangers protecting them with guns and heavy-handed law enforcement, which is needed because of the type of crime that goes with it. But at the end of the day, if you really want to protect rhinos holistically into the future, we need the people that live in and around the areas where rhinos are to be their biggest champions. And that's where, for example, the Care for Wild project, with creating jobs, creating other livelihood opportunities linked to the picture of the rhino, can change that narrative. And that's where we would like to invest lots of our funds into the future. This is the future of Africa in any case.
Yeah, just to add on to what Marcus is saying, in Ghana Reserve, we've got 12,000 elephant that are already playing a really big role in human-wildlife conflict around the park. And obviously, like elephant, rhino are also large and very intimidating animals. And it is important that people understand, their role, and also that they don't just see it as a threat. They don't just see it as an opportunity to poach. And I think that's what Herbert's program is all about around Ghana Reserve, is to really make people aware of these animals. I mean, black rhinos are dangerous to people, but the likelihood that they will get in contact with communities are fairly slim. But on a daily basis, we've got human-wildlife conflict with elephant. And as you can imagine, elephant being large and intimidating, they play a very big role in the community's daily lives. And a large part of our project is about just educating and raising awareness about these animals that are getting out of the park.
Great, thank you. I think a question that people tend to ask often, and I see it coming up here, is about removing rhino horns so that rhinos aren't attracted to poachers. Can either one of you speak a little bit to that effect?
So de-horning of rhino has been a tool which has been used pretty much in all its range areas in Africa, particularly in South Africa and Namibia. It's proven to be quite successful when it's done completely. So if a population in a particular area is completely dehorned, it does seem to be a deterrent. But what unfortunately then happens is that the poachers just gets displaced to the park where that's not happened. So it's a short-term solution, but certainly in the long term, rhinos use their horns for socializing. They use it as a tool, and they obviously use it as a self-defense weapon. So we do not want to have a situation where that is the only solution that we have to protect them. But at the moment, in some areas, it is a very useful tool to do that. And because it regrows, and it's not, you don't have to cut it off in the live tissue. It's like cutting your fingernail. It has no real welfare impact on the animal, but obviously there are other aspects we still need to understand a bit better. Great,
thank you. I'm sorry, it seems like we've lost Herbert and Rumbi, but maybe we'll be able to get them back. Oh, there they are back. There is actually a question that that folks might be interested in your answer. Is are there any specific women's programs implemented through any of these Rhino initiatives? Is there anything going on through your particular programs, Rumbi and Herbert?
So if they're not on, I can answer that. Around our park, around Ghana Reserve, we've got various programs going on. Most of our rangers are men, and that's just because of a number of reasons. We've got programs, large programs for women in our community extension programs, also in our tourism programs. So we tend to employ and advertise for people, both men and women, and we've got certain criteria that they can apply for. And yes, so to answer your question, we've got a number of programs for women around the park and also inside the park.
Great, thank you very much. Herbert and Rumbi, I see that you are back on. Is there anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, and as far as women programs we have in Ghana Reserve, we also have programs that are related to non-timber and forest products, where we allow women to harvest wild vegetables from the park for their livelihood. We also conservation bank, where we look at improving the income of vulnerable women in the community. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I see some questions coming up here about that fun music video that you started off your presentation with, Hugo. Do you have any more plans for it? And I know that it kind of made the rounds in a number of conservation circle, but maybe not so much with our international audience. Do you want to give a bit of background and any other plans for that video?
Well, that was just part of that Jerusalem challenge that went around, and our neighboring community, Malalangwe, challenged us on that, and we thought that we'll give something back that beat their sort of their subscription that they provided. So yeah, that was it's something that was nice to be doing with all our staff. So it's not just, rhino conservation is not just about rangers. It's all about and a park like Ghana Reserve is really supported by various staff, and it's often the rangers or the people that are protecting the rhinos are often in the front line and in the limelight. But behind the scenes, there's hugely financial people, community people, research people that are not always in the limelight, that are not always acknowledged. So the purpose of the video was really to showcase that in the park. I mean, that was just a short snippet of it, but in the park, it's it's a variety of people, and it is all about teamwork and getting people excited about it, and that was what it was all about.
No, thank you. I think that's what's so important, is getting people together and working together on these things. A bit more technical and related to the release. Are there any risks that the animals released won't be able to adapt to the new area? And then what happens then?
Well, I'm sure Marcus can also answer that probably better than me. I mean, in any reintroduction of any species, there's a huge amount of risk. And that's always the unfortunate part. And reintroductions are an important part of what we do just because of the impact of human beings in the world. And I think without reintroductions, we will not be able to save these species. So 100%, I mean, these rhinos are coming from fairly close by neighboring areas. But it is like taking someone out of their, out of their home and put them in a different environment. They need to adapt. Black rhinos are very territorial, so they really need to become used to the new environment. They need to become used to the new, smells in the area, and then they know where the water is, know where the right food is. So that will have to be monitored very closely. We will have veterinarians on site. In fact, Marcus will also be there when the rhinos are brought in, and at any stage when we feel a rhino is under any danger, we will recapture that rhino, put it in a boma, in a holding pen, where we can monitor it much more closer. So I think Rumbi mentioned there the tracking devices that will be implanted in them, and they will be monitored on a very closely, and we will pay a very close attention to their well-being. And the real risky time is really the first 3 to 4 weeks, and that's where we will be alert to any problems.
Great.
If I can just quickly come in here, Jija. So what Hugo is doing there, and one of the reasons we are very hopeful for this, is the platform is built not only with regards to habitat detection measure, and also the way that reintroduction will be done as best practice will be applied. But I just have to note very clearly that black rhinos are very difficult species to reintroduce, and there are unfortunately always some form of mortality. But that's why there's a number of up to 30 animals will go in, and that is determined to be a very healthy starting population. And once they've settled, they actually do very well. So I must compliment Hugo and his team for doing the legwork, which takes years to get it right, to get to this point where he is now.
Great. Well, thank you both. I know there's a fair amount of questions, and I love to see the interest in your work. We are running a little bit over time on the time allotted to the session. I want to make sure that we can move forward. So I'm going to ask you a last question, and then we'll close out, let people go on to other parts of the expo. There's a question that came up asking if rhino habitat was also elephant habitat. So I wondered if you could speak maybe to the interactions with other species. And that would be a great segue to launch us off into a day of multi-species exploration after this rhino session.
Thanks. I mean, Ghana Reserve has got a very large elephant population. That is actually one of our concerns, is the potential impact of elephant feeding on the availability to food for rhino. In a complete natural system, rhinos and elephant live completely in harmony with each other. Often the elephant will make more browse, more food available to rhino by breaking trees, and rhinos can access that food a lot closer. But with the density of elephant that we have in Ghana Reserve, that will also have to be monitored very closely. And I mean, we've got programs that we're looking at trying to expand range of elephant into neighboring Mozambique. And hopefully that will take pressure off the rhino. The rhinos will also be in a sanctuary area, and we will move some of the elephant physically by helicopter out of the sanctuary area to reduce the pressure on the rhino itself. So again, that's just one thing that will have to be monitored. Rhinos has been absent from Ghana Reserve for 27 years. And in the meantime, elephant populations has increased. So it's something that we will have to monitor very closely.
Yeah, and it's something, I mean, we've been very happy to support the work of Frankfurt Zoological Society in Ghana Reserve through a number of WCN initiatives, including lions and elephants. So all of those complementarities are really key. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Hugo, thank you, Herbert and Rumi, and thank you, Marcus, for living on the front line and dedicating your lives to making sure that there's a place for rhinos and other animals to coexist with people in this part of the world. Your work is really inspiring to us all. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. If folks have more questions for them, feel free to put them in the chat, connect with them directly off the Expo, go visit their website, and stay engaged with us, and we'll report back on some of those successes. For now, we're going to take a break. It is almost 9 a.m. here in California, so almost the top of the hour wherever you are. We've got another 15 minutes break. We're going to return at quarter after the hour. Here on the main stage, you're going to be able to learn about gray-crowned cranes and then Ethiopian wolves. And then on the all access stage, we'll be hosting our first roundtable presentation of conservation in local hands. So for now, go take a break. I encourage you to go visit the conservationists in their booths. I know some of them are already there, and have a great rest of your Expo day. We'll see you in 15 minutes.